Charles Darwin, a naturalist, biologist, and scientist in the 19th century that studied specimens around the globe. He developed his theory of evolution through the process of natural selection, and it's extremely influential to our current understanding of life and evolution. It started in 1809 when Charles Robert Darwin was born on February 12, 1809 in Shrewsbury, England, in the county of Shropshire. He is the fifth child of Robert Waring Darwin and Susanna Wedgwood. They raised him in a house known as the Mount. Charles Darwin had a relatively happy childhood because his parents were rich and he enjoyed collecting beetles. However, at the age of 8, his mother died. After that, starting in 1818, Charles was taken care of by his older sisters. In the picture on the right, Charles is actually the one on the left, while his sister Catherine is on the right. He also started attending the Anglican Shrewsbury School until 1825. However, Darwin hated studying at school because they focused on the classics, while he enjoyed collecting insects, minerals, watching birds, and hunting. Darwin also conducted chemical experiments with his older brother Erasmus in a tool house in the garden. Because science was considered dehumanizing, he was nicknamed Gas and rebuked by the headmaster. In 1825, when Darwin was only 16, his father decided to pull him out of school early to enroll at Edinburgh University to study medicine. However, Darwin was not interested in medicine because he was disgusted by surgery. At the time, it was done without anesthesia. As a result, 2 years later, Darwin transferred to Christ's College, Cambridge to study divinity. While studying to become a clergyman was more enjoyable than studying medicine, Darwin was becoming increasingly interested in natural science and history. In fact, Darwin was so passionate about collecting beetles that in his autobiography at Cambridge, he claimed that while collecting beetles, he ended up putting one in his mouth to not lose the other two. At Cambridge, Darwin also befriended botany professor John Stephen Henslow, who became his mentor. In 1831, when Darwin graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree, Henslow recommended him for a gentleman naturalist position aboard the HMS Beagle for a voyage around the world. Darwin gladly accepted. So in 1831, Darwin left England for the first time in his life to embark on a 5-year voyage across 4 continents, led by Captain Robert Fitzroy. On the voyage, Darwin collected natural specimens, conducted hands-on experiments, studied local geology, and read books such as Charles Lyell's Principles of Geology that influenced his later theory. One of the most well-known destinations on this trip were the Galapagos Islands, where he made a stop for 5 weeks toward the end of his journey. These islands were a group of volcanic islands, each with its own distinct landscape. At the islands, Darwin studied finches, tortoises, and mockingbirds. He collected a large amount of evidence and observations at the Galapagos that later helped him develop his theory of evolution. One of these observations were that the different islands to a considerable extent were inhabited by different species. After Darwin's return in 1836, he published an account of his trip and findings in a 770-page diary known as the Journal of Researches, or the Voyage of the Beagle. He also began to understand more about evolution, at the time known as transmutation, where animals more suited to their environment were able to survive to reproduce, causing evolution to occur in a process known as natural selection. However, this idea contradicted the Christian belief that God created all life on Earth. As a result, Darwin was reluctant to publish and instead continued to gather evidence. Meanwhile, in 1839, Darwin married his maternal cousin Emma Wedgwood. Together they had 10 children, but 3 died at a young age. Although Darwin became ill, he continued researching and publishing throughout the 1840s and 50s without actually publishing anything about evolution. By June 18, 1859, Darwin had written over 250,000 words on evolution. On that day, he received a letter from Alfred Russel Wallace, an admirer of Darwin, who proposed a theory that was similar to his ideas, yet they both came up with them independently. Darwin feared he would take credit for his ideas, so with the help of his colleagues, they decided to present their ideas together at the Linnean Society, a biological society in London. About a year later, in 1859, Darwin published his famous On Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. Darwin was criticized by his friends, family, the church, and press. but he was reluctant to defend himself and left debates to supporters such as biologist Thomas Huxley. In his later life, Darwin continued researching and publishing, but spent more time taking care of his children, because the ones who didn't die early were usually sick. While Darwin was raised as a Christian and trained to become a clergyman, as he grew older, he started to claim that he had neither faith nor disbelief in God. Towards the end of his life, many of Darwin's ideas were being increasingly accepted, though some still criticized him because he often hinted that men descended from apes. Sadly, in 1882, Darwin died at Down House, his family home. He was buried at Westminster Abbey, London, a famous burial site. Darwin had a huge impact on our view of life and our place as humans in nature. He is credited with founding evolutionary biology, and his main contributions to this field were the actual concept of modern evolution, the idea that evolution branches like a tree, that evolution is gradual yet never actually stops, and that evolution occurs through the process of natural selection. However, Darwin also had impacts outside of science. In the late 19th and early 20th century, Europe, especially Britain, controlled vast amounts of territory around the globe and dominated conquered people. Philosophers such as Herbert Spencer justified imperialism and racism by using social Darwinism. Theoretically, conquest was normal because Europeans could conquer natives, which made them more fit and naturally selected. However, Charles Darwin did not actually intend for his ideas to be used as philosophies. They were simply twisted and taken by others.